Welcome to BACKtalk, the premier podcast from successful Black Parenting magazine, featuring in-depth conversations and expert insights on crucial topics for Black families. We are ranked one of the top 4 Black family podcasts on FeedSpot and number 1 on Million Podcasts. I'm your host, Janice Robinson-Celeste. If you like our content, I invite you to join our online community, or village, should I say, of like-minded parents over at the Black Parenting Academy by Successful Black Parenting magazine. Yeah, we're doing it all. I will post that link for you during the show sometime, so you have to pay attention. This is a safe place to share your parenting wins, comments, concerns, or just to get help with parenting challenges. Now, back to today's show. What would happen if every little Black boy knew, without question, that someone always has his back? Let that sit with you as we dive into today's conversation about raising confident, joyful, emotionally grounded Black boys. Stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
This is BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting magazine, your go-to podcast talk show for parents. Share our podcast with your friends, shout it out to your followers, because sharing is truly caring. And don't forget to use the hashtag BACKtalk when you post. Today on BACKtalk, I'm joined by Derrick Barnes, a Newbery honor-winning, New York Times best-selling, and multi-award-winning author. Welcome to the show, Derrick. We're so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me, Janice. Thank you for having me. Happy Thursday.
Yes, indeed. Now you're winning all the awards. You're not leaving anything for anybody else, sir.
Right? And it's never enough either. It's never enough. There's still some boxes I would like to check. So just continue to crank out, hopefully, quality books that highlight the beauty and brilliance of our children. So
As you should. Let's
yeah.
start. Now, I introduced you, but I want to hear you. If you introduced yourself, how would you do it?
I always describe myself as a Midwest boy with Southern roots. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, but my family is from Clarksdale, Mississippi. I was raised in a single-parent household in a little 2-bedroom house. I've been reading since I was 4 years old, started writing when I was 10. I was in gifted and talented classrooms from I think the first grade to like the 8th grade. So I went to a different school every single year. 5th grade is when I started writing. Wrote my first short story. And shout out to Miss Shelby, who's my 5th grade teacher, and all the educators out there. Love y'all. So I started writing everything that I possibly could. Fell in love with hip hop music. Miss Shelby saw that hip hop music was just another form of poetry. So she introduced us to all the writers in the Harlem Renaissance. So I started falling in love with Langston's work. He's one of my homeboys. He's from Missouri. So I just studied everything that he ever wrote. And it's kind of fused that with my love for music. We had a huge album collection growing up. And I used to study the liner notes of all the songs and read all the song lyrics, Stevie Wonder, Roberta Flack, Earth, Wind and Fire. I'm a huge jazz fan, so I think you can kind of hear and feel that in my writing. Being from Kansas City, one of the birthplaces of jazz music, and graduated from high school, went to Jackson State University, greatest HBCU in the universe. I had my first writing job there. I worked for the school newspaper, the Blue and White Flash. I had an advice column called Brown Sugar. My name was Hershey Brown in college. And it was brown sugar written by Hershey Brown. And we won a couple of awards, graduated with a bachelor's degree in marketing. I was the first Black male writer for Hallmark cards in 1999.
Wow.
Did that for 3 years. And my first books came out in 2004. And I've been published since then. My career didn't really take off until 2017. I wrote my first picture book. It was my ninth book. So there are no overnight success stories, trying to raise four boys. Been married for 24 years, met the love of my life when I was at Jackson State. And I wrote that book right over my shoulder, Crown and Ode to the Fresh Cut. And it won everything, won every major children's book award, or it was an honor. And it's just changed my life. It has literally changed my life. Books 21 and 22 come out this year. So, man, I just wake up grateful every morning to not only be the head of this family, but be able to do what I do for a living, especially in this day and age of, book bans and
Yeah.
all the other cultural wars that we're going through. I feel blessed to be able to be one of those artists that is, challenging all the negative things that are going on in this world right now. So I'm just I'm just blessed.
Yes, indeed. That is fantastic. Now, you may have already answered this question, but I'm going to, before I ask it, I want to go back because you mentioned the book bans. You have not been affected by that, have you?
Well, it's so 2 years ago, the superintendent of this suburb in Birmingham, he tried to ban. So I was supposed to come to his district for a whole week and do a whole week of school visits. He claimed that a parent complained about my book, I Am Every Good Thing. Hopefully your followers know
Yeah.
that book. It was my third New York Times bestseller. And he said someone complained about that book. If you read that book, I don't know what there could be to complain about that. But I went after him, man. I went after him. I contacted every news media in Birmingham. I had interviews. I was on the television. I was on radio. I was in a newspaper. It was picked up by national news stories. And I Am Every Good Thing ended up back on the New York Times bestsellers list. And he got fired like 2 or 3 months later. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not gonna let anybody come after me because I know that I'm doing God's work. I'm doing good work, and not only for our babies, but I'm trying to write books so that white children and non-black children can see black children, as a protagonist, as the
Yeah.
center of the universe. And it's so important that we get to see everyone else and learn as much as we can about different cultures. So I'm not going to let somebody silence my book when I'm writing about positivity, about black love, about black joy. If you come after me, I'm coming after you. So
Right. Well,
that's how I get done.
that was karma that happened, wasn't it? So I don't
Yeah,
know when we became a society where one person's complaint affects the masses.
that's crazy, man. Yeah.
Right. Just one person can cause everything to stop, just cease, halt. What I don't know when that became okay. So
I,
I'm
I,
sorry.
I call it the I call it the George Floyd effect because in 2020, I was contacted by every famous white woman that you can think of to be on their television show, to be interviewed, and black children's books were all the rage. Some of them I'm still friends with, but some of them have moved on, like they normally do, in black culture. This country is something else from a historical perspective. Just so many ups and downs. It seems like 1 minute we are going in, the right direction, but after 2020, when they were changing the names off of buildings and taking down statues, and everyone wanted to read Black children's books, the exact next year, 2021, 22, those same books were the books that were being banned. I think they were frightened. They felt a change was, afoot, that people were waking up.
Yeah.
But now, so there were new governors elected, there were new school board members, elected, and I just think it happened in 2020 when there was a ramp up of book bans. After that.
Yeah, there was definitely a flip, like where everyone was
Yeah.
all of a sudden on the Black Lives Matter bandwagon, and then all of a sudden anti-black. So
Yeah, every single corporation created a diversity, equity, and inclusion,
yeah,
department, and now all those departments have been disbanded.
yeah,
And that happened in 2020 when they created that. But after that, America went back to its old self, man. So
it did, it did.
uh,
And no, go ahead.
no, no,
Okay, you may have answered this already, but we usually do an icebreaker where you tell us something that most people don't know about you. But you did tell us a lot. So can you think of something you haven't said?
Um, well, I am celebrating my 50th birthday, August
Oh,
the 9th.
okay.
Yeah, and I don't feel 50, whatever that means. I've been a type 1 diabetic. That's another secret. I've been a type 1 diabetic since I was 10. So I just try to eat right, exercise every day. You know, drink my water, get some good loving by an amazing, brilliant black woman. My sons are
Shout out for
just
Black
brilliant boys, crazy about them, and just just trying to live a good life. But yeah, I'll be 50 on August the 9th.
50 is just a number. That's what I'll tell you. I'm headed,
Right.
I'm almost 10 years older than you. So, but
Oh man,
50,
really?
yeah, 50 is just a number. Trust me. It's how you
Mhm.
accept it, how you take care of yourself, what do you
That's
feel
right.
in your mind. They always say Gen X, we're headed to our 60s or in our 60s,
Hmm.
but we look like we're 30 to 40, but we have the mind of a teenager. So,
Hmm.
so it's how you feel. Anyway,
Yeah.
you've written some of the most powerful books celebrating Black boyhood. What inspired your newest book, and how is it different from your other ones?
So I'm extremely proud of this book. Just from an aesthetic point of view, the illustrator's name is Jamar Knight Justice, and he is an educator in Atlanta, Georgia. I think this might be his fifth or sixth book, maybe. But we were supposed to go with a children's book legend. His name was Floyd Cooper, and he passed away during the pandemic. So I reached out to Shamar, asked him if he would be willing to jump on the project. He said yeah, and I think he came up with a beautiful cover. He is a master of collage. He mixed different images, a lot of different Easter eggs you can see in some of the images within this book. But it is based on my relationship with my big brother Anthony, who is my hero. I love him so very much. He's 7 years older than I am. Like I said, we were raised in a single parent household, and my mother worked like two jobs most of the time. So it was just us at home most of the time. And we are like polar opposites. Like my brother is a regional manager for a wine company, and he's custom suits, cigars, and I wear jeans and work boots and t-shirts. You know what I mean? So, but man, he taught me everything about hip hop music. He introduced me to hip hop. Most of his friends were from the East Coast, so he was able to get his hands on mixtapes when I was in elementary school. Introduced me to Eric B. and Rakim, Coogee Rap and Polo. Big Daddy Kane's my favorite rapper of all time. Taught me a lot about girls. He Whenever he went to the car wash on Saturday mornings, to go to car wash with your big brother on Saturday mornings with his music playing. He's still my protector. He's still my hero. And on the flip side of that, being a father of four boys and growing up without a father, being able to be blessed enough to be a dad and to witness, their relationships, the different um, um, relationships like with my eldest boy and my youngest son, or my two middle boys. And, it's just awesome to see them grow up and develop their lifelong bond, the same way my brother did. And so in this story, um, Anthony, who was the eldest son, he takes care of his little brother Rashid. The story is told by Rashid in the yellow shirt, and Rashid goes all the way back. He remembers when he first came home, and the first person he saw reach into his crib was his big brother Anthony, and Anthony just showed him how to go outside and jump in mud puddles, how to make Lego blocks and knock them down, how to put on a nice white shirt that mama put on, laid out for church, and showed him how to ride bikes. And this is some of the things that my brother taught me. And it's just a book about older siblings, whether it's a big brother, big sister. Sometimes we have cousins that we call brothers and sisters, and it's just a shout out to them. And man, whenever this podcast is done, y'all make sure y'all call y'all big brothers, big sisters,
I
tell
love it.
them thank you for being a tour guide for this thing called life.
Indeed. Indeed. You mentioned your sons, the 4 sons, and you affectionately call them the Mighty Barnes brothers.
Mighty, 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 mighty. I
Mighty,
got to say
mighty,
it
mighty
4 times.
for
Yeah.
each of them. Okay,
Yeah. That's right.
okay.
That's right.
Now how did that come about?
It's so crazy. When they were young, and so now we live in Charlotte, but when we lived in Kansas City, Missouri, on Saturday mornings, they would all be at the breakfast table. And I still do this now, but I would come down the steps and my wife was making breakfast, and I go, finally, the Bonds brothers are together again. They would go crazy.
I love
And, they didn't know, but I knew that this was not going to last forever. You know what I mean? To have them all together in the same space at the same time right now is so valuable to me, man, because I remember road trips and being able to look at my rearview mirror and see all 4 of them, together.
that.
And it's 4 totally different personalities. They really challenged me and made me a better person, made me a better man, and they are like my primary sources of inspiration for pretty much most of my catalog. So shout out to the Mighty Barnes brothers, man. I love y'all.
Did any of your lessons from your own parenting journey make it into this new story?
Yes, the father in the story, he doesn't have a very prominent role. He's at the beginning, he's at the end. Some of these images are images of Ezra and Solomon, who are my 2 eldest boys. And I remember we moved to New Orleans in 2003. And Solo, so my second eldest boy, is my only boy that wasn't born in Kansas City, Missouri. But I remember we went back home, Ezra and I. Ezra was like maybe 4 or 5. And he was so happy to not be alone anymore. He was so excited to have he sung in that car all the way from our house all the way to the hospital. And he was the first one to hold Solomon, and he didn't want to put him down. He sat on the couch. He had Solomon in his arms. And, I think there's a couple of scenes like in the first part of the book that are, reminiscent of the first 2 Barnes brothers meeting and kind of setting the foundation for the 2, youngest brothers. And my two youngest boys have formed a bond, ever since the first 2 boys went off to college. They got pretty close. And my third son just left. He's a freshman at Xavier University in New Orleans. That's Silas. That's the boy that's on the cover of Crown. He's 18.
Okay.
My youngest boy is 14. His name is Namdi. He's actually on the cover of the King of Kindergarten. He was the
Yes.
inspiration for that book, and he's going to be a freshman in high school. My second eldest son, Solo, is 20. He is one of the best safeties in college football. He plays for UTEP. And my eldest boy is 24. That is Big Brother Almighty. That is Ezra. He is headed to grad school at Howard University. So the guys are busy, and I'm extremely proud of them.
Do me a favor, spell Ezra.
EZRA.
So after Ezra, Jack Keats.
No.
I was
Well,
wondering because are your sons
so
named after authors? Okay.
I gave
Black authors?
I gave my first 3 boys, biblical names,
Okay.
and their middle names are the names of artists. So Ezra is Ezra Langston,
Okay.
and Solomon is
Powerful.
Solomon Matthew. He's named after Matthew Hale, the father of gospel music, and Matthew Henson, actually. Matthew Henson, the explorer, the first black man to go to the North Pole, and then Silas Nathaniel is named after Nathaniel Hale, the father of gospel music. So
Okay.
I decided to do something different with, Namdi. He has a Nigerian name, which means my father is alive.
Okay.
Namdi Thelonious Barnes.
Oh, okay. Filoni.
Obviously, yeah, Thelonious is probably the greatest jazz pianist of all time, one of them.
Yes.
So,
Love
yeah.
that. No, fantastic. What powerful names. I wrote a book a long time ago with Simon and Schuster about baby names and naming ceremonies in Africa,
Mhm.
and names are powerful. And so I'm all about what you name your child is
Yeah,
so important to get them through life. So
extremely important. Yeah,
fantastic. And
yeah.
in the book, I Got You, there's a moment though when Rashid learns to respect his brother's boundaries,
Yeah,
right? Tell us
yeah.
about that.
Well, just like I mentioned about, my brother, it was just an honor and it was a privilege anytime he told me to put my shoes and put my jacket on, and asked me to come with him, whether it was to the car wash or it was to a high school basketball game. I just felt very, very privileged to hang out with him and his friends. And, looking back on it, I think about how he must have thought about me, that he really thought highly of me, enough to be able to spend time with me. But there were some times when he had to go off and be with his friends, and I couldn't come, and that really hurt my feelings. I remember the first time, I think I was like 7 or 8, and he went out to play football, and I was obviously too small, to play football. But you learn in time, that there are just some things that little brothers can't do, but that doesn't change the nature, of the relationship. You're gonna always have that bond. So I had
Right.
to weave that in there somehow.
How do you think that parents can help their kids navigate those sibling dynamics while still being nurturing, right? And nurturing their closeness together?
So one thing I learned from Silas, which is my third son, is that he really enjoyed one-on-one time. So I used to try to I used to try to carve out one-on-one time with all of them, and then I tried to come up with different, figurations. So sometimes I'll just take Ezra and I'll take Namdi, or I'll take Solo and Namdi. I just try to mix them up, and I think there's going to be some, natural order of things because their personalities are so different. But I always made sure that we did family activities, together. We did a lot of, road tripping. I always bought 2 hotel rooms, and Ezra was in charge of that room, and they spent a lot of, time together. So I think a lot of it is just doing family activities together, and also making time to isolate each child, and just spend personal time with them.
Yes, indeed. And there's so much beauty in Black brotherhood, but also there's pressure, right? How do we
Yeah.
protect and celebrate the bond between Black boys in a world that often tries to divide or label them? What's your opinion on that?
So you know, y- so you asked about the origin of the mighty Barnes brothers. In this house, we celebrate everybody and we celebrate everything, big wins, small wins, and I think that carries over, throughout, their circles outside of this house. That I want my boys to be a light when they walk into a room. I want people to look forward to seeing them because they're always going to be positive. They're always going to say something that makes someone's day, and that starts in the house with supporting each other, whether it's landing a scholarship, getting good grades, making the New York Times bestsellers list. What I mean, whatever it is, we celebrate everybody. They celebrate their mother when she has wins. We celebrate them, and it's always been that way, even when they were small. So I think, again, that carries over to just being a positive person, outside of this house, where I tried to make sure they were superstars in this house, because we know once they leave out that door, they're not going to be treated the same.
Right.
And I want their self worth to be built up, and a lot of that comes from just celebrating who they are, celebrating those small wins, celebrating those big wins, and just showing each other respect and a ton of love.
Right. Now with the
Mhm.
mighty, 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 mighty
There
Barnes
you go.
brothers, how do you
Mhm.
model strength and emotional vulnerability at the same time? Like, how do you do both?
It's very tricky because I guess as an artist, I'm very open um, about my emotions. I don't have a problem talking to them about issues that may be affecting them. I also don't have problems talking to them about issues that may be affecting me. On Father's Day, I don't really need too much. I love socks, but I also love for them to write me things. That's the only thing I ever want, and it's so cool to see them from the age of 5 to like in their early 20s and see how much their writing, has progressed, but also how much they have learned to express themselves and how they feel about not only me, but our relationship. So there's been a lot of writing, uh, writing prompts, and just get them to just open up. And it also goes back to that one-on-one time. When they were younger, one of the things I always told them is that they can always trust me. I'm never going to judge you. You want your children to always have a safe space, because they're going to go through all these different phases from elementary school to middle school and high school. And sometimes they may not want to talk to you, but you got to make sure that you're going to be that soft space, where they can land. And a lot of it is just not judging them at all. If they know that you're not going to judge them, they will come to you. And I think, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I just think they are fortunate to have a father that's not, I don't have a problem expressing myself. I will cry from time to time, man, especially as I've gotten older, man. And, everything is changing. The boys are leaving. It makes me a little bit more emotional. My babies know they can always come and talk to me. So.
That's important. That's really important. And you mentioned writing prompts, which is perfect for you as a writer, an author, and but I think all parents definitely should do that. What kind of writing prompt would you give them? Give us an example.
So I like I like to come up with scenarios, and I've bought workbooks, but initially I would come up with my own writing prompts. Like if you were on a deserted island and you can only take 3 items, what would you take? Or if you would take three albums, because I'm a big music fan, and just to see where their mind is, how much they want to express themselves, how much they want to write. What they decide to choose, what's most important to them. I'm just trying to fish around and kind of see their mindset sometimes, with some of these writing prompts. I just bought Namdi a writing prompt workbook. He got like 4 workbooks to do over the summer. And, that's one of them. I haven't checked this writing prompt workbook today. I got to check that out.
Okay. No, those are great. And I wanted to give the parents an example so they can start doing these things
Yeah,
to help their children with not only writing, but also have someone reading if they're struggling to write it out, even if they struggle to write it. So I love that idea. I
yeah,
absolutely do. The
yeah.
book, yeah, books like yours are often called mirrors and windows. So why is it critical for Black children to see themselves reflected in joyful, everyday stories and not just trauma narratives?
That's so important. When I first got into this industry, when I was working at Hallmark cars, I noticed that the books that we grew up on and the books that were winning, all the awards that may be written by Black authors, they were all about, they were all, stereotypical. The boy played basketball, or he was from the projects, or he was a runaway slave. I said, man, if I ever get the chance to get in this industry, I'm going to write books about how Black boys and Black young men really are. If you see all of my book covers, it's a Black boy with his head up. He looks very confident. He looks like the Black boys that you knew from your neighborhood, just like the Black boys in this house. And I want to tell stories where Black children are just being children.
Yeah.
I want Black children, I want white children to be able to pick up these books and see themselves in these stories as well. Like we've had to imagine ourselves being, Luke Skywalker, and imagine ourselves being Spider-Man. And you know what I mean? Like we have to put ourselves, if you are Black in this culture, we've always had to imagine ourselves being someone else. But I think it's imperative as a Black creator that we tell the truth about what it means to be Black, and that our babies have family members that love, care about them, and support them. Like, the king in kindergarten. It's just about this 5-year-old little boy that comes from a very loving family that's starting school for the first time. There's nothing intrinsically, at least from the textual standpoint, where you would think that it's a Black family. A lot of the heavy lifting is done by the illustrators. I've had a lot of amazing illustrators. I just try to write in a very universal
Yeah.
way so everybody can see themselves. But I also want Black children to see themselves and to want to carry these books around with them everywhere they go and just feel inspired and know that they can be in this in these spaces all over the planet. Like Black children belong everywhere. Like you do not have limits on where you can go, what you can become. And that, you know, every time I sit down, I think about my boys. I think about Black children all over this country, and I try to fill in those spots and tell those stories that are, you know, that are not being written right now. And I feel like I'm doing a pretty decent job. Like I said,
You
you know how
think?
you started off. Yeah. But just it's still a lot of stories I still want to tell. You know, I'm just I'm really competitive, and you know, I want to do this for as long as I can, and just really try to tell that full story of what it means to be young, Black, and brilliant. You know, in America.
Yeah, if you guys are just tuning in, Derrick Barnes has written some of the greatest books for preschoolers, kindergartners, and of course, one of my favorites is has always been The King of Kindergarten. And for the reason you said, it's so universal. Everybody has to go to kindergarten,
That's
so you
right.
see that book in all of the classrooms. It's one of the teachers' favorites because of that. So he's won all of the awards, guys. He didn't leave any for us. I always say that, but I'm always happy and cheering you on because I'm like, you go ahead, get that, go get those things.
Thank you
I
very much.
love that. I want you to
Thank
win.
you.
I'm always for us winning. Um,
Thank
but
you.
as far as home libraries, what role should parents play in building those that reflect our children's identities and aspirations? And are there any must-haves books besides your own that they should have in those libraries?
So I think there should be three important types of books in your your child's library. There should be fictional books that feature Black characters. There's so many. I mean, there's just a long list of Black authors that I love, look up to. You know, one of my favorite writers of all time is Renee Watson. Um, Jason Reynolds, Kwame Alexander, Kelly Starlin Lyons, Jerry Craft. The list goes on and on. Kwame Mbalia is, all of it. I mean, you just can't go wrong with their books. Tiffany D. Jackson. And the second type of book is a nonfiction book. I have Namdi reading both, so he's reading a fiction and reading a nonfiction. And I like to have conversations with him after he's read his 2 chapters or 20 pages. But nonfiction issues that may not be touched on in their social studies classroom. So we're talking about you know, the different race riots across the country that occurred after, Reconstruction. So, you know, in Wilmington, Black Wall Street. We talk about Reconstruction, which is so important for Black children, to learn. That was a major turning point in American history in regards to Black folks. Talk about obviously the transatlantic slave trade. So nonfiction about what may have once seemed like heavy issues are imperative to have in your home because they may not be learning this at school at all. I'm pretty sure they're not learning these things at home. So you have to make sure that they understand the foundation of this country and how important we are to the democracy of this country. There wouldn't be anything close to democracy if it were not for the efforts of Black people um, trying to keep them honest for everything that they wrote in the Constitution. Black people have kept them honest. So I think it's important that we teach our children those things. The third type of book I think are reference books. We used to have encyclopedias, but I think reference books about the world, not just Black issues, but I think it's important that they learn about the history of different nations and how different nations were built and how different nations have crumbled. We may be experiencing that right now. So I think I think it's important that they learn it as much as they can about the world, and not just United States of America. So,
Yes.
um, and also again, going back to them writing, leave them space to write down their ideas, thoughts. It could be a paragraph, two paragraphs, or just have an open conversation after they've finished reading, whether it was the fiction, nonfiction, or the reference books. Because they will have questions and they will be curious, and that's one of our main jobs, is to make sure that we feed and nurture our children's curiosity. I think curiosity dies at a certain age, and that's one of the things that keep me going, even at the ripe old age of 50. I remain curious and want to know things that I didn't know before, and I think we have to make sure we do that before they leave the house, and make sure that we feed that curiosity, and keep these shelves filled with books that can nurture that.
Right. If you do not have a bookshelf in your home, go get one today. I don't care if
I
you got to
get
go to
one,
the
make
thrift
one.
store,
That's right.
make one, make it. I remember making bookshelf out of cinder blocks and some wood slats that I found somewhere in my
Yeah,
room because when I was a kid. But I had a bookshelf. But the one thing I didn't know if I can remember if I ever had was nonfiction books till I got older. But I know I had fiction and I had reference book. I had Childcraft and was a World Book. Yeah, I remember
hmm
having those. So let me go over that. So we have fiction books, nonfiction books, and reference books. That's what you should have in your children's
yes,
library and you're at
yes.
home. All right, pretty
hmm
good. I like that. Let's talk legacy.
hmm
What do you hope your books will teach future generations of Black children and their parents about self-worth and family?
That's an extremely important question. I think about that now, especially in this stage of my career. Every time I sit down and write, I'm really just focused on writing the books that I want to write. In this industry, sometimes editors may, have ideas about books, and then they think about the perfect writer or author that may be perfect, be a perfect fit for that book. But I've turned a lot of those, requisitions down. And
Mhm.
I just want to write the books that I want to fit in my catalog. You know what I mean? Like, you think about all the creatives that you love, whether they be musicians, actors. If you think about Denzel's body of work, I mean, I can't think of a film that he probably regrets in his body of work. It not
Yeah.
only speaks to his craft, but it speaks to the kind of person he is and what kind of characters that he wants you to remember. We can all name out, maybe 10 Denzel characters. I kind of feel that same way about my books. If you line everything up, I want people to feel a certain way, to maybe look at me as a free Black man, which is extremely important to me, that I don't belong to anybody, that I tell the kind of stories that I want to write about our people, that make our children feel good about themselves. And I'm always going to be committed to that. Every single title that you line up, you won't be able to point at one book in that whole collection and say, he sold out for the money right there. I don't know what he was doing right there. Now, every single book, from Victory Stand to The Incredible Human Handsome Blaze to I Got You, was always written with, our babies in mind.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that. I'm absolutely glad to hear that. Now, how do you balance your career as an author with fatherhood?
So I used to feel very guilty. I used to
Mm.
feel very guilty, like when the boys were younger, but now they're older. And we have conversations about being the patriarch of your family. That sometimes, unfortunately, you have to make sacrifices with your time. When I do spend time with them, I try to make it extremely memorable, and I shut my laptop off, and just focus on them. But for the most part, there has been a lot of times where I couldn't do family things, or I couldn't go places, with the family. I stay up late most nights, and I'm trying to strike while while the fire is hot. I'm trying to make legendary books. I mean, that's what stays on my mind, and sometimes you're gonna have to do that.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think they respect me for that, especially my two eldest boys, and because they've gone out into the world, and they've understood that you have to eat what you kill sometimes,
Mhm.
and the most important thing is when you do spend time with the people that you love, you are solely focused on them. But my career and my health and my mental and emotional self is so important to keep intact because I'm the center of all this, and because I'm going to be the one that they always come to, for advice, for ideas, for safety, for money. So I
Mhm.
have to make sure that I can always be available, for my family. I think that's the most important thing that you can do if, as the head of your household, is to make sure that you're available for everybody. That goes from my wife to my youngest son. So right now I'm just in go mode. I'm trying to like we talk. I'm trying to win every single award,
You
be
should.
on be on be on every single bestsellers list. I
Yes.
want these books to turn into films. I'm trying to get everything right now, and I think my boys understand that. I think my wife understands that now. So.
So for parents out there who, you always hear a parent, I want to write a children's book. I want to write a children's book. I hear that a lot. When you sit down to write a book, what is your process? And then what words of encouragement would you have for them?
I think if you are a writer and you seriously have something to say, I think the first thing you should do is do your research on the industry, whatever genre or age group. I get messages all the time about people wanting to write children's books, and the first thing I ask them is who are their favorite children's book authors, and some of them can't name authors, they can't
Mhm.
name illustrators. So you have to do your research about the industry. You can just spend a whole afternoon in the children's section of your local library or go to a bookstore and just pick up books that catch your eye and just sit down, study them, study the authors, understand the editorial process. So it's not, I meet a lot of people that have cute ideas about books, but this is a career. You know what I mean? Like, what are you actually wanting to add to this industry? You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole lineage of authors, not just children book authors, but what are you wanting to add? To what's already out there. You know what I mean? I've had so many people who think that certain books have not been written about hair and about Black Boy Joy. Like all these books have been written already. But if you do your research and then you add your own flavor, your own voice is extremely important. Like
Mhm.
that's one of the things I learned when I was at a Hallmark Cards, that if you cover up all of my books and you just read the text, when you read it, you should feel like this is something that Derrick Barnes has written. So I think that's one of the things that writers should, try to focus on. Like, what is your voice? And I've taken pieces of, different poets that I like, different MCs that I like, different novelists that I like, and I've uh, I've matured into what I am today, and I'm still learning and trying to work on my craft. So I, I don't know. I'm kind of a snob in that way. If people are not serious about working on their craft and being a real writer, um, I don't know. I just don't. I don't have a lot of time for people who aren't serious about the craft. If you
Right.
have a cute idea about a children's book or something, there are avenues for that. You can self-publish, you can vanity print. If
Yes.
you're serious about doing it, then the first step is studying this industry.
Right. I understand that. And then once you get past all of that, the marketing part is a whole other monster. So you got to be good at both these days,
Yeah.
usually, to get started. But final question: how can our audience follow your journey, support your work, get their hands on I Got You?
Yeah. So I always recommend going to bookshop.com because it supports, independent bookstores instead of going to, Amazon. I mean, if you purchase your book from, Amazon, that's cool. But I always, recommend going to bookshop.com or going to your local independent bookstore, Barnes and Noble. I am most active on Instagram at Arthur Derrick D. Barnes. There's also a football player named Derrick Barnes. He plays for the Detroit Lions. That is not me, even though I love football. Or you can go
Uh-oh. We might have to say that again. I think you froze. Let's see if it comes back around. Give it a second. It happens and we're on air. What's being, oh no. Uh-oh. Hold on, Derek. You might have to refresh. We lost that last part after the football player because you froze for a second.
Okay.
Say that again.
All right. No, I was saying you can go to my website. It's Derrick D. Barnes. And, again, I'm most active on, IG. So July 15th, my 21st book comes out. I'm so excited about it. Such an extreme blessing. I Got You, A Brother's Promise. Pick it up everywhere early. Those pre-orders are so important, for us in regards to making the USA Today, the New York Times bestsellers list, because the day the book comes out, it looks like you've sold 4,000 copies or 5,000 copies. So pre-orders are extremely important. Wherever you order your books from, please pick one up. If you have older siblings in your life, if you have sons, if you are a boy mom, pick up. I Got You. It's one of the most heartfelt, sweetest books that I've ever written. So I hope y'all love it.
And you know what? They make great birthday presents for when you have
Yes,
to
they
go
do.
to a birthday party. Wrap up a couple of picture books and make them look really pretty and give them for the gifts. I think that's always a great gift to get. Well,
I
Derek,
agree.
I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and
Thank you.
I just love hearing about your sons and your work. So, no, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Janice.
Okay. And a big shout out to all of you watching us on BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. Be sure you follow us on social media. Click on everything, the follows, the likes, the ads. That helps us to survive so that we can help you to thrive. Until next time, I wish you the best and much success. Take care and thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We'll see you soon.